Hey everybody, welcome back to Balance Exchange. I'm Papa Bear here today with...
Cronus, and today we're going to talk about Afghanistan and the pull-out method. Kind of gone wrong. All right.
Pulling out.
Hey, it's me, Rasan. I don't know, man. Huge hole in my,
Yeah.
understanding. My fellow Americans.
Papa Bear here.
As long as whatever you're doing doesn't hurt anyone else, I don't care.
Different perspective of what an interesting topic is than I would assume.
This is Balance Exchange. So, usually in this podcast, I try to not curse as much as I usually do on my other podcast. I really do try. But in this one, it's going to be very difficult for me not to do that. Oh, Jesus, hold on a second. So yeah, in this one, you might hear me drop a few more F-bombs and a bunch of curse words. So
yeah, I do want to point out, so like I listen to most of the time on Wednesday night while you guys are live on your other podcasts, and I'm usually listening to it because we're all settling down, getting in bed, and like chilling out for a while. And every once in a while, depending on how active everyone gets, Mama Bear every once in a while is like, God damn, you guys curse a lot. It's like, yeah.
Why is that guy so mad?
It's like, fuck is every other word. I'm like, well, yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
This is one of those times.
Yeah, it just might happen.
But I'll try not to. All right. But it's definitely probably going to happen. Whatever.
Yeah, I'll hold on. I did just think of something, and we'll talk about it when we get going.
So at this point in watching our videos, you may or may not know that I am an active duty United States Marine. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so I know that it's really important for me to make sure to get this out there. If it's your first time watching this, please stick around and make sure you understand the disclaimer. If you've watched a whole lot of our episodes so far, feel free to go ahead and jump ahead to the new content. So what I need to talk about today is that I am not authorized and have no way of being approved to speak on behalf of the Marine Corps. So any opinion that I give or any concept that I discuss today is the position and the opinion of just me, myself, just a man who has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in leadership and organizational management, and has spent my whole life looking at government structures and social contracts and how these things are supposed to work, what the philosophies and things behind them are, and read a lot of books on that kind of stuff. And it's definitely one of my personal and key passions. And so when you hear me maybe give a position or a concept on something, that is only my own position. I am not a public affairs officer for the Marine Corps. I am in no way giving what the Marine Corps' official position on anything would be. And honestly, a lot of the topics we're going to cover here, I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps doesn't have a particular position on. So if you do have any questions about what the Marine Corps' policy on certain things could be, you can definitely research that and find those out, or leave a comment or send us a message if you can get a hold of us somehow. We can maybe be able to answer those questions for you. So with that said, let's get you back to this week's content.
All right. Well, let's do our normal thing. What are you drinking? If you're drinking anything right now.
Nope. Yeah, I have them out, and it's pretty much, still trying to keep to it. It was funny. One of the officers I work with brought up. So we have the birthday ball coming up, and we are actually planning an in-person thing so far. Right. Still planning it that way. It hasn't. It's got trajectory, but there's also flattening, and we're not sure. So right now we're watching it, and it may end up being canceled. But so far, plan is for it to be in person, which means it's at a hotel, it's in Vegas, and the plan is that at some point in the celebrations, people will be done, and we'll be like in the pools. And he's like, I gotta make sure I got a pool body on. So I was like, yeah, I'm kind of working the same thing. So I'm still doing keto, and I got my Truly strawberry lemonade here. So.
Nice.
What about you?
I'm drinking something far more complex than a Truly because I ran out of Trulies today. I am drinking a Warming Hut Memoirs, and it's a pecan pie pastry stout. It's got Georgia pecans, Madagascar vanilla. Holy crap. These letters don't go together. Corinthi. There's a J in there, so that's what threw me off. But cinnamon, maple syrup, and brown sugar. And it's I don't know how strong it is, but it tastes pretty potent. I think it's at least 9%, if not more. No, it's 12. Sorry, it's 12%.
Yeah, if you say it tastes strong, I'm thinking 12. I go dragon's milk as soon as you say it tastes strong, especially you. Like a 9%er, you're like, nah,
Yeah.
that's a normal day. Oh, man.
So what do you read, man?
So I finished New Jim Crow, I think, since our last discussion.
Great.
And I am now listening to one that was recommended by Enrique because we are both looking towards trying to build a better, like, instructor development reading list that's official, so that way all of our instructors can count those as, like, professional development.
Yeah.
So I'm reading a book called Limitless. It's by a guy named Jim Quick. So he had a brain injury as a kid, and for years afterwards struggled very, very hard to like learn at a basic pace. He had to work really hard at it to the point where this is how bad, and this obviously made it worse. So he's sitting in class and struggling to understand something. Teacher calls on him. He's trying to explain it. Doesn't make sense. She tries to get him to explain it again. And at some point looks at the rest of the class and goes, and this, everyone, is the kid with the broken brain.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like, and so that like lack of support and that injury itself, because there was issues for him to overcome just because of the injury, but then all of the stigma, kind of by being labeled, made it even harder. And so he said he was an adult, like he was 18 years old by the time he started like really realizing that it's not about any of the normal limitations that you perceive yourself to have. It's about how you look at things. And he started changing his outlook and is now like really, really super popular public speaker on learning and how to overcome limitations and basically make yourself limitless. And it's kind of interesting because so Enrique said, hey, this one's really good, you should check it out. He picked it up because of a different one. I think it was like a book called Rise of Superman, and they kind of like cross-referenced each other. And but then I started listening to it and I thought it was great. So I started recommending it to someone else who's also kind of a part of our panel of people who are trying to select the right books. And first thing he did was like go to the reviews and click on 1 stars just to see what people said, which I was like, that's a pretty good strategy. I like,
yeah,
I like that strategy. And there's stuff like, there's nothing new that's here. This is all reiteration of other people's concepts. I was like, yes, what he's saying is these are all these other things that are all over the place and really hard to understand if you are just trying to look at it from what he's trying to bring it all together. And like, this is one thing. You have to look at all these different learning strategies and build a whole platform to go through. It's like, there's so many of them I read. I'm like, you're an idiot. One of the big things was he still talks about superheroes because for him, it was focused on comic books that he was kind of one of the ways he made it through because he was able to get really engaged in the stories, which taught him to read. And it was overcoming that part of it that made him realize there's got to be some other way about this, right? So he still links everything to like superpowers and this concept of like linking things to things you're passionate about. And they were like making fun of him for being an older dude and like still being interested in comic books. It's like, who are these people?
You look right there. Like, and actually, you can't see him because it's covered up, but like there's literally, like if you look more that way, there is literally, I think it's 25 short boxes of comic books. So just anywhere you look around me, there's comics right here. I still read comics a lot.
Yeah, I thought that was the silliest thing. I'm like, you guys are just nitpicking at this point. And I thought that was a very engaging and accessible way for people to, think about it. But yeah, so it's personal / professional development that I'm reading at this point.
Good.
Not really the fun break from reading like we talked about.
Yeah, you need a break every now and again.
So, but it's still good. It's I needed this actually. It would have been if I was reading something just fun and entertaining. I think today would have been harder because I kind of needed that, refocusing with how rough that meeting went yesterday. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. Oh, it's good though. Yeah, I think my next book I'm probably going to read is going to be something more. Actually, no, the book I just finished today was actually kind of more serious. So, I just got done reading a book called Breathe, and it's by Hickson Gracie. Do you know who he is?
I feel like I've heard the title before. I don't know that I know what it's about though.
So I don't know when he made this book, but I'm pretty sure it was recently. It dropped on Audible this year, I believe. It dropped, on like a couple days ago. Dropped on August 10th. It's a pretty quick listen. So you gonna say something?
Oh, I said, oh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's only like 6 hours and 33 minutes, but it's by one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners of all time, Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, and it goes really deep into the Gracie family, which is quite large and diverse. There's a lot of stuff that goes on where I had no idea, and things that happened in his life and things that happened in his family. We're just like, whoa, because there was like a point in time where he was the guy, like he's supposedly like an unbeatable dude, and then all of a sudden he just kind of disappeared. I was like, I thought he just had a back problem because I knew he had some sort of like back issue, which he did, but then something really dark happened in his life that I was not aware of until like way later in the book. I was just like, damn. But like listening to him talk about growing up, listening to him talk about like his dad, Helio Gracie, and his cousin, and his uncle Carlos, and all of his brothers and cousins, and how they were brought up and like learned jujitsu, and like what he thinks about jujitsu now. It was really eye opening because he was like super honest about like drug use and what he thinks about like sport jiu-jitsu now, and like what he thought about like his dad later on in life and some of his other family members. And I was just like, whoa, this guy's like really telling it like it is. And this is the guy that's usually like, he didn't really, he was kind of gone from like the public life for like probably 10 plus years, and he kind of resurfaced, and he explains why he was gone. And why he was gone, like it's not a BS reason. It's like a really fucked up reason. But like him trying to come back now and like kind of get jiu-jitsu back on track for everybody else, because there's like a thing with like sport jiu-jitsu and like self-defense jiu-jitsu. So for him, when he talks about jiu-jitsu, he's talking about purely like self-defense aspect. And for me, like I already know like some forms of self-defense. So when I do jiu-jitsu, it's mainly sport jiu-jitsu. But this has me thinking maybe I should do some more like toss out some gloves and start doing jiu-jitsu, and like put in some strikes with jiu-jitsu and like really understand how to use jiu-jitsu like in a fight. Because I definitely know how to use jiu-jitsu, and if I get into a fight, that's what I'm going to, hands down. But like how comfortable am I like getting punched while doing jiu-jitsu? Like I don't mind getting punched, but how much is going to interrupt me from like my normal process and flow from jiu-jitsu? So I think to keep myself honest, I'll probably start flowing more towards that with my training partners and say, hey, you guys want to just buy some gloves, some MMA gloves, and let's keep ourselves honest when we're doing these moves. So
yeah, because the ability to try to like maintain focus while still getting a strike or accepting one too, like knowing that it's more important to make this particular movement than it is to block the strike. Sometimes it's absolutely worth taking the strike and finishing everything else off. So and again, like I said, you really can't practice it unless you really practice it. 'Cause taking that hit, the jar it gives you, and knowing how to continue moving and start a movement, continue a movement, and to train your body to do so while you're still ringing a little you can only do it by doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, as I'm training, there's always accidents where you get hit or kneed or punched. There was one time where I actually had to get stitches because like I was rolling with this kid, and he's a Muay Thai fighter, and he was like learning jiu-jitsu as well. And I was taking him down, and he literally just out of reflex, just threw an elbow, caught me right in the eye, and I was just like, I just kept rolling. I was just like, whatever, like, and then they were like, oh man, you're bleeding. I was like, what? And there was like a huge gash on my eye. I was like, oh shit, like, all right, but it's like, how many times can I take like a blow like that and like ignore it, So
I figured you were gonna say his knee came up, because that could have been, as going down, knee comes up to kind of like adjust, because that's the way Muay Thai will do it. Is bring that knee up and
yeah, thank goodness it wasn't a knee. Yeah.
It'd lay it back real good, especially since you said these stitches, knee to the eye. Ugh, those are never fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I highly recommend that book to pretty much anybody, even if you don't know jiu-jitsu. If you even heard about jiu-jitsu, definitely read that book because it tells you more about jiu-jitsu. But anyway, the other book that I started today is the Heir of Navron, which is like the book 3 of the Right Era Revelations. So it's more fantasy stuff. So.
Back on this, that's from the same series that you were talking about before, which was
yes.
What was the first one?
The first one was like Rise of. No, the last one was Rise of Empire. What was the first one? I think it was the right. No, see, no, I'm messing it up. I forget the name of the first book. This is when I go through a lot of books, and you know this.
Yep. Yeah. I had to look up one I want us to talk about, and so I
Theft of
was like
Swords.
looking through. I'm like, I can't find it. But yeah, what was it?
It was Theft of Swords. Was the
Oh,
first one. Yeah.
it must have been a different series that I was talking about at one point. I can't. We do talk about them pretty frequently. So
Yeah. There we go.
the you mentioning it as because that's basically the one you finished was autobiography, right?
Basically, yeah. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
basically like it's basically an autobiography or like a memoir, sort of. It gets real deep into
Mm.
like, especially, it's really good listening to this book because he goes from like from the time he was a child up until now. Now he's in his 60s. It's like hearing like his whole thought process change like into his 60s. It's like wow. It's like similar things that we're kind of going through. It's like understanding limitations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
So like, there's a part in Limitless where he goes into pretty good detail on some stuff about Bruce Lee to show like overcoming your adversity and breaking loose of whatever limitations others put on you
yeah.
to create your own thing. And it made me realize like I want to read like a good biography of Bruce Lee. I haven't like watched a biography or read about him in any detail. Like I knew a little bit about his story, but just what he like scratched the surface on, I was like, oh my god, I need to read more about this guy because it sounds like his adventure. I mean, I already knew it was pretty amazing, but there were things about it I didn't know, and now I'm super interested. So I think that probably not the next thing. I think I do need to go kind of light and fun for the next book, but maybe I'll hit a Bruce Lee biography after that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that because already as I finish this book, I'm like, oh, now I want to listen to more like jujitsu books to like get me more back into it. I'm still kind of in it. I'm still rolling a little bit, but yeah, like just the whole martial arts in general, like really understanding the martial arts aspect and because it's like one of the things, like especially as a civilian, if you become like if you're in a martial art where you actually spar, not just don't ever push yourself to the limits, never get hit, something like that. Like you need to have an actual combat sport base to your martial art to know that it actually works. I think once you get to that point, uh, your whole mindset kind of changes on like a lot of things. On like really dealing with adversity and like feeling pressure and like getting roughed up and stuff like that. I think that really hardens people. And I hate the thing where they always say like iron sharpens iron, but I'm like that's not. Most people don't sharpen iron with iron. You use a fucking whetstone, but whatever. So, but definitely like the people that you train with will change you as a person. You know.
It's true. In that too, it talks about you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I thought about that today. I was like, I'm hoping that um, I'm spending enough time on these podcasts because this is most of the time we talk. We do chat and messaging a little bit, but that going through the list, I'm like, spending the most time with people. I was like, this might make it so that you could make it to the top 5. I'm like,
Hopefully,
yes,
yeah. We learn
So
a lot from
they-
each other. Yeah.
become part of the average. So I'm like, okay, bring that into my character.
If we live closer, definitely. I mean, like we're already. I always talk about moving to Canada, but my cousin just moved down to San Diego, and my brother lives there. Now they got me looking at houses. I'm sorry, they live in Chula Vista, which for most people is San Diego. But now I'm just like, maybe I should go down there. I know a lot of people down there.
No, it can be nice. Chula Vista. I mean, that's like as far south in San Diego as you can go, though, pretty much, right? It's like the very southern part of the town, the county area.
Yeah, but it's like there's a really affluent area that didn't exist when I lived there. It's really nice. My brother has a house that's like 3 times the size of my house. Like no, more than that. It's more than 3 times the size of my house, and it's like the whole area is nice. So yeah, when I lived in Chula Vista, we called it Chulawana, which is kind of messed up to say, but
It's the border. It's the border town, basically, part
Yeah.
of San Diego. It's like
but for some
the border
reason,
is. Yeah.
there's a bunch of big mansions there. So
Okay.
that are probably in my price range now, especially if because we have equity now in the house. So my cousin moved there because he bought a house. I'm not gonna tell exactly like because I don't want to say his financial business, but he bought a house last year in Union City and lived there for like a year. Then he got offered like a really lucrative job in San Diego, and so he took like basically he sold the house, but it gained like probably $300,000 in equity. in like a year.
Jeez.
So he just took that. He was like, okay, he just bought another house down and took that money and just rolled it over into a new place.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking at doing sort of the same thing. Just like take the equity, like maybe sometime next year, and
Yeah.
and maybe and move.
That could be cool.
Yeah. All right. I think we've danced around enough. We need to get serious. We need to get our war face on.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. Yeah.
Or
would you like to
not
start?
get a war face on.
Yeah. So hold on, real quick. There should be a disclaimer before we even start talking about Afghanistan. I'm going to tell everybody that's listening to this podcast, especially if you're a veteran or currently in the military, I have never been to Afghanistan. Okay, I've been to Iraq, and I've been to other parts of the Middle East. I've deployed, but I have not been to Afghanistan specifically. I was supposed to go, but I didn't go.
And obviously, I have a disclaimer as well. And we're back.
Yeah.
Specifically to this one, on top of that, there may be things as we go through this that like I'll kind of dance around just to ensure that I also, on top of that, don't say anything that like I really shouldn't say anyways, even though it might not be like the vacancy of actually making a point would be contrary to what I would normally do if it was just me. For now, I still have to hold on to some of this. To start something, I guess we could go way back to tell you a little bit about me that you probably don't even know yet. So for someone who's spent 21 years in the military, in the United States Marine Corps, in high school, for 2 years running, I was a member of like an organization that sought peace more than anything else, right? I attended conferences called Peace Jam and like looked at trying to find peaceful resolutions to conflicts that were going on at the time. So if you remember when the like Timor and East Timor conflict was going on, that was probably right around when you joined. I was in high school and was actively like attending rallies and stuff to try to bring peace to the area. So generally a person who knows the reasons for war and understands that there are reasons for conflict, but that finding resolutions to disagreements without violence is obviously the first place we should go. But sometimes there are reasons for it, which I think we did talk about.
Just wars. Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking about justification for it and my issues with the NAP, right? And for the libertarians, where they tell me that I'm supposed to say there is no justifiable reason for aggression, which I'm like, that's not a realistic stance. So,
anytime somebody says that, it's like if somebody says that, I just want to punch them in the face. Be like, well, what are you going to do now? You're probably going to call the police, right? Because of threat of violence. And you're calling the police because the thing that's going to make me stop from punching you is a threat of violence on me. So that's how that works. And should it not happen? 100% correct. But this is reality.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. So keep that in mind as I go through it. Like if at any point it seems like I'm advocating for war or standing on that side of it, that's not the case for me.
So you were basically a hippie then, right? That's what you're basically trying to say? Sort of, kind of?
A hippie who's not allowed to grow long hair, sure.
Yeah. Or do any kind of drugs. Except for coffee, caffeine. Yeah.
And alcohol.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it.
So I guess lay the groundwork, right? So the reason we're bringing it up this particular moment.
Yeah. So the reason why we're bringing it up is because a couple of days ago. So this is August 19th, 2 days after my birthday. We just pulled out of. Well, we just pulled out of. I'm putting it in quotes. Sorry, people listening to the podcast can't see it. Air quotes. Pulled out of Afghanistan, and it has been a tragedy as far as like the way that it happened. I'm totally for us leaving Afghanistan after 21 years. Totally for that. But there is something to say of like the way that we left and like the images that you see of people like jumping onto airplanes and falling off of them and dying, and people just like really trying to leave the country and now they can't. So yeah, this is a huge deal right now. It's a huge crisis in the area, and because of that happened, there's been a whole bunch of just like nonsense that has been talked about Afghanistan and the war in general, and just the way that America operates around the world.
Yeah. So, do you remember the world's 911 force line?
You talking about the show? What was it?
No, no.
What
Like,
was I
so
gonna?
there's there is a branding, a slogan,
Yes,
a kind of thing for the Marine Corps to say that we are the world's 911
that's
force.
that's what made 9/11. Yeah.
And it's an interesting way to put it. Like, I would say it would be more appropriate to say we're America's 911 force, right? So if there is a specific conflict that made sense for us to respond to, we would be the first, and then everything else would follow. Because we're supposed to stay ready, do all these other things, right? Be always ready for the next fight, and using the 911 force as the immediate responders. We're the first to be able to go do some stuff, the first to fight, one of these other ones. So that would work, but to try to then extend that beyond interests specific to defense or like those things that are very specifically things you should take military force to for a country um, is a bit inappropriate. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, there was a thing that I was actually looking up before I was even right before the podcast, and it's a thing called mission creep, and I believe I'll give you the actual definition because this is actually because I want to make sure that I was correct because I've been out in the military for a while. I mean, once and always, and all that, but obviously I'm not active anymore. So mission creep, the definition is a gradual shift in objectives during the course of a military campaign, often resulting in an unplanned long-term commitment. This is literally Iraq and Afghanistan defined to a T.
And Vietnam.
Yeah, and Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember, did you watch Heartbreak Ridge? Have you seen it recently?
No,
You
I
remember
mean, it's been
lines
a
from
while.
it?
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, I remember it.
Do you remember? So there's that scene where Gunny Highway's in the bar talking to the sergeant major or whatever, who they've fought together all these years, and he uses this line. He says, "We're 0-1 and 1."
Oh, 1-1.
Yeah. So 0 wins, 1 tie, Korea, and 1 loss, Vietnam. We never actually won a war as the Marine Corps in the structure that they were in at the time. Those guys who were in this movie for that generation.
Yeah.
So it said they've never won a war as a country, but the Marine Corps always wins its battles, and then the government loses our wars for us, kind of thing.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Just there's something wrong with I think all the audio.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. No, it's good. So go ahead and talk again.
Test 1.
There we go.
2,
I don't
3.
know if it dropped out for. I can't tell if this is dropping out all the time or not. So, sorry, real quick, just so I can explain to you. In Streamlabs, all the audio will get frozen, but on Audacity, things are recording. So this might be a pain in the ass to edit. We're good right now, but
Okay.
I just noticed that it was happening. So it's all audio.
Yeah. Worst case, I could put them both together at some point.
Yeah, but I hate the stitching together is a pain in the ass. But
Yes. There's a few tools, but yeah, it's always the best way. And this is always the case. There's rotoscoping. You know what rotoscoping is.
Mm-hmm.
So started with literally frame by frame, right? Adding it to lightsabers. That was the first rotoscope.
That's what I was thinking of too. Is lightsabers.
Yeah. And so now there's literally mark, and it'll track, and then you can rotoscope, and it does it automatically. But you still have to look really closely and go frame by frame and check it and make small adjustments. So if you don't do that, it's fine. It probably would look okay because it's only going to be slightly off, and it's going to be for a part of a frame, or a part of a second, a couple of frames in it or whatever.
But they add up.
It does, and if you're meticulous, the only way to actually do something perfect when you're doing video editing is to just go through it and fix it perfectly yourself, and it's very tedious.
I think.
But luckily, I'm good at very tedious tasks.
Yeah, we'll have to just watch on this one to see if there's an audio dropout because the video's still recording just fine. But if we see the audio drop out, then we'll know that there's something obviously wrong. So we'll just have to.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
So
back to Heart Rate Ridge and 01 and 1.
Yeah, and so they were kind of saying that the Marine Corps wins all of its battles, but then the country in general always loses our wars for us. They're all grumpy old men. But like, it's interesting to look at it. It's still basically the same, except it's like 01 and like 3.
Well,
or 01, 02, 03, and 1. Yeah, whatever.
Well, if you want to look at like the first Gulf War, right? I mean, technically we won that one, right? Sort of, because we completed the mission and we left.
Yeah.
So I don't think that one was a loss. But it
So
also was
one. So we're 1, 3,
yeah,
and 1, 1, 3, and 1.
yeah.
Got the scores now.
And meanwhile, we're still pumping in all this money into our defense. We'll get into that later. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That mission creep comment is what made me think of that. It's the same thing happened in Vietnam too, where it's like the objective is to stop this, but then how do you ever really stop cultural change that the citizens of that country want? Not through sheer force, that's for sure.
yeah, I think, and it's the weird thing to me is that we were warned about like this whole scenario, especially like when you talk about mission creep. I think it was Dwight Eisenhower who talked about it. If you look at his speech where he talks about the military-industrial complex, this is literally what he was warning us about, and nobody really listened. It was just I think I lost Papa Bear.
I froze it, I think.
Yeah, just a video, I think. So did you watch that speech of Eisenhower talking about the military-industrial complex? Hold on, you're almost back. I gotta wait. We're having technical issues on this podcast, but it's okay because we'll edit them out. Maybe if Papa Bear's doing it 100%, it'll be edited out. If I'm doing it, I'll get most of them. No, we'll definitely have to edit this out now because he's super frozen. I'll have to message him. Where's my phone?
Bring him back.
There we go. All right, what happened?
I don't know. I just dropped off Wi-Fi.
Okay. So,
Weird.
are you familiar with Eisenhower's speech about the military-industrial complex?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So this is basically like this is what should I play the clip? It's like there's a 3-minute clip that I found of what.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull that up. Give me a second here. So I think it's important.
And then if you
go ahead.
If you either link it or send it to me, then we can just add it into the edit too.
No, I can actually just share my screen and then play it. I'm pretty sure I can. So
Yeah, that'll work.
Give me 1 second. I kind of forgot how to do this on here. Is it a whiteboard? No.
There should be, once you open the browser and have it going, there's a
Is it
little a square with an arrow pointing up that says present now.
Yeah, I got it now. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and no, because it's on another one. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I can fix this.
While you get there, so in Limitless, he talks about this thing that's called your defining question. So it's the one question that is the thing that basically drives like everything that you do. And I realized what mine was.
What's yours?
How do I fix this problem?
That's a good one.
But it's also bad, right? Because that means that I generally look at everything like it is a problem.
That and there's some problems that you can't fix.
And that I'm not being asked to fix.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're both talking about the same thing. Like I frequently am receiving problems. Like here's this problem I'm dealing with from my spouse,
Yeah.
who's like does not want me to try to solve it. Just wants to vent, and sometimes that's hard. to accept.
Yep, I had the same thing with my oldest daughter. I'm just like, I have suggestions, but she's like, no, I just want to vent. I'm just like, okay. All right, let me see if the audio will play with this. Hopefully it
Yeah,
will.
let's see.
This is Eisenhower talking about the military-industrial complex. So, can I make it bigger? There we go. Here we go.
Nice.
With a message of leave taking and
Okay, let me just rewind it.
There's some weird audio loop.
I come to you with a message of leave taking and farewell.
This speech did not get very much attention. When a new
Oh,
president
God
is
damn
coming
it.
to power,
How
as
dare
John
you. I can't
Kennedy,
do that. Yeah, I gotta fast forward it to the guy, and it's all just like, it's like a react. I can't do that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Oops.
If it was not a react, I would have done like the whole thing. But basically, he talks about he when people talk about the military-industrial complex, people think it's like some weird, like shady, like some tin hat conspiracy theory thing. But it's like a president that was leaving his presidency actually coined the phrase, and it's literally what we're talking about is having like this whole thing of where we just have like this, where our economy revolves around the military, and we pump money into these certain corporations through defense contracts, and that funds basically forever wars. Like we've been at war for most of my lifetime, and I'm not even just counting Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm talking about the Gulf War, because I was a little bit in the '80s. I guess there was like the Contra Costa thing. That wasn't for very long though. There was Sarajevo. There's a bunch of other ones, but there's a whole bunch of like small wars that have been happening, where America's we've been at war more than we've been at peace. And like, I don't understand, why do we need to always be at war? Like, I don't understand the point of doing that.
So one, he was a president who was a general also.
Yeah,
so like would know probably better than some of the other presidents. Like, look, this is how this thing works. Look at this one machine of driving everything surrounding war. So that's another angle to look on it. I think I haven't seen that react. I've seen some really good breakdowns of it, and I think the point he was about to make was like, this is a very weird moment for someone to say something like that. But he was able to because, for one, he's an old dude. And like, he's like, I'm done. I got nothing, no fucks left to give.
Yeah.
and he's like, and it's the second term. I'm done. Not running again. And there's a problem, people. Like, here's what I could not fix. Maybe someone else can. And it's still not fixed. But yeah, you make a good point that it's basically a system to create this perpetual investment in the ability to prosecute a war. But things like the small wars, the Sarajevos, the whatevers, like, not to discount them, sorry, not the whatevers, but anything that's a small conflict or an individual thing where you just send in a group of Marines and they handle whatever that small problem is and bring it back with no declaration of war, allows us to even circumvent the actual declaration of a war, which we've decided to declare on a bunch of shit that doesn't actually qualify as a war, but then are also not declaring it when we are actually executing military conflicts or military actions inside certain spaces. It's a really weird, baffling dichotomy of things that astounds me that we can do it.
Yeah, and I think that to go back and like into some history of the United States, I talked about it before, I think on a previous podcast. I think it was on the racism one, about how how we used to pay taxes in the United States, in that we didn't used to, like, not all Americans used to pay taxes. It used to only be basically the wealthy. And that ended it was either in World War I or World War II. I'm pretty sure it was two. It might have been one. But the vast majority of Americans didn't pay taxes. But yet, fact check me please, it was in one of those wars. And the reason why they started taxing everybody was to fund the war. And for World War I and World War II, I'm on board with that, because obviously that was like a significant issue with the world. Like, people were losing their lives en masse. It was affecting everybody, and it was affecting the United States. Obviously, in World War II, we got bombed by Japan. We had to have some sort of response. Obviously, our response was pretty fucking heavy-handed, but it did end the war. But I think that what happened was after these corporations saw that, oh, you can have people pay all these taxes to fund my company to make weapons of war for the military. Why would we ever want to end that? So we're just, for whatever we need to do, we're just going to lobby, and get all these politicians in our pockets to make sure that these wars will never end. Never end. We haven't had a decade without a war. I don't even know. I mean, has there ever been a decade without a war in America?
Probably 1893 to 1910.
Wow. And then World War I came, and that's when, yeah. So it's just like, and it's crazy, and people just, anytime you talk about reducing the military budget, people get so mad because they think that you're talking about basically reducing the military. When I talk about reducing the military budget, I am not talking about touching anybody in the military. You can keep the exact amount of people in the military that are active duty right now, or even reservists right now, and still reduce the military budget significantly if you just stop with the current trend of bloating the military budget to pay for contractors for jobs that military members could do. I don't know about you, but when I went to Iraq and I saw that foreign nationals were washing my clothes, they were cleaning the toilets, they were cooking my food. I'm like, why are they doing that? And those are all military contracts. Like, a PFC exists to clean the goddamn toilets. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they do. They're on the bottom of the totem pole, and they don't get paid much. But the problem is that when you have a foreign national cleaning a toilet, the contract to clean that toilet is probably $150,000 for that one person, but they're paying that foreign national maybe $20,000, and then they're taking their passport, so they can't leave while they do that. That's the dark side of what happens when you go to Iraq and Afghanistan. Because I'm pretty sure it's similar in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you're technically by the legal bounds of those kinds of contracts, you're not allowed to do that.
But I know they do.
It's only identified when inspected. Inspectors don't always go to all of these places, certainly not at a frequency to catch all of that stuff. So when inspected, it would have to be clear that they are not taking those passports and doing that stuff. But you're going to know when flights are coming into countries like that, where someone's going to come in and inspect something. And so I'm sure they could get around it. I've never seen it directly where I know that part of it is the situation where they are breaking those rules, because they're pretty strict on it, and it's a pretty hefty punishment for it. And I say hefty, it's not like money to a point where those organizations would care.
No, and I've talked to some of the people that do laundry and stuff. They're like, yeah, like I don't have. They would tell me that they don't have their passports. I'm just like, why don't you have your passport? And they're like, well, they take them from us. We come to. I'm just like, dude. Like, yeah. And this is from direct conversations. So
yeah, everybody was local contract, or not local, but foreign national contracting. So we had like porta-johns, emptying of all that. Any of the water management stuff, which is crazy too, because we do have water management people. Gray water, black water, freshwater distribution stuff was all done that way. We actually did a well, like dug a deep well at the site that I was at, and then once we had access to the water for that well, then distributing it, like just loading it on trucks once the bottles were filled and distributing it to all the sites on the base. Foreign nationals doing it. There were trucks that would load up gray water from all the showers, and then those trucks would spray down the roads, so that way the roads stayed from getting dusty. Those drivers were all local, like some kind of foreign nationals.
Like a lot of them for me, like most places I went to, there was like a lot of Sri Lankans, which I thought was really odd.
Laundry,
yeah,
barbershops. all the food.
Yeah, and it's just like, but that's all stuff that like I would expect the military to really take care of. Like even when I was in Qatar, on the Air Force base, I had like people that were like Sri Lankans like cutting my hair. I'm just like,
And it's weird. So like we did all of those things until it grew so much that you needed more people to do it, I guess. So like there was nothing at my base when I got out there. I landed on a helicopter pad as quartering party for a regimental combat team in Afghanistan. Land off a helicopter, like drag my stuff off, and you're just dragging your bag across rocks. You could see like a sand berm that had been pushed back by Army Corps of Engineers and like defense tower turrets in a perimeter. And then like over there was a couple of tents set up. I mean, and this is a large space,
yeah,
big flat air, open area. And then back this way was where I was going because that was where two tents were together, and there was a huge, giant SATCOM antenna outside of it, and then Track 170 is on the other side. I'm like, oh, that's where I go. I go to the big, giant antennas, and that was it. And it was January, so in the region I was at, which was, I will double check on the map in a second, but so it's in Helmand and Nimruz. It's kind of where they come together. It's on the southern half of Afghanistan, but on the north part. And if you know anything about geography of Afghanistan, so it's northern hemisphere, pretty similar to America as far as like where it is latitude wise, but the center of it, east to west, is a huge mountain range, very very high altitudes, and so everything kind of close to that is high enough altitude that it's very cold, even in the central, in the wintertime, and then it's still a desert, so also then very hot. It's kind of like here. It's kind of like being here in Yucca Valley. So January, there was literally still snow on the ground in the evening. And like I stepped into a puddle and I was like, oh crap, I was going to step in the puddle. It was frozen. It's like, oh. And so it was super cold. And then they did cold weather training and all sorts of stuff to get prepared for it. So we were kind of thinking that, got used to that. But then it got stupid hot too. So it's like, oh, you just can't win. But I remember too, those first few weeks, like while we're like just closing in on a tent and trying to keep it warm, and like there was I think he was a utilities warrant officer. I was a staff sergeant at the time. There was like a utilities warrant officer that brought some kind of a hot thing that he could make coffee with, basically like a little camp stove, a small one to make coffee in, and that like saved my life because I'm a huge coffee drinker. So he had that, so he and I every morning would be able to have a cup of coffee, and so now I'm that warrant officer. Like I always have my thing when I go to the field. I'm like, I will absolutely have hot coffee, even if I truck it all in.
You ever use the Aeropress?
What I have is I can't think of the brand name, but it's a little metal cup basically and a heater on the bottom, and then I can just throw the coffee in and let it boil, and then like it French presses down. Okay. Yeah, I haven't had Aeropress. I don't know.
Aeropress is pretty. It's very compact, especially like the Go version. Basically, you can make like sort of like espresso in a really compact. There's no heating element, so basically you just need to add boiling water into this thing, and you just press it down. But it's like way more efficient than a French press, because it's like a rubber stopper at the top, and you press it all down into like your cup. And I love Aeropresses now. And now, once I got the Go in, I was like, I wish I had this. I didn't drink coffee in the Marine Corps, but obviously as you age, I think people probably need more coffee as they age. So I started getting into coffee as I got a little bit older, but I love an Aeropress. It's so you don't need to let it like sit. You let it sit for like maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and you just press it down, and you're good.
Yeah, there was a time, even at like I think it was at TBS mostly, where I was doing Turkish style. You know what Turkish style coffee is? Because I was just being lazy. Like I was just, you know what? It's boiling. It's boiling water. Throw the grounds in there. Give it a minute. The grounds are at the bottom. I can drink now.
Yeah.
And then you just don't drink the bottom because it's got all the grounds in it. You dump it out. You're good.
Yeah.
People were like, "How are you doing that?"
Yeah.
It was funny. Like TBS in Quantico in January and February is also very cold. So we go out to the grenade range, and a lot. which baffled me too. A lot of these warrant officers had never, and again, because we're from all kinds of different jobs, had never thrown a grenade, not once.
What? Really?
Right. And so we're all out there. We all get a chance to throw a grenade. And I'm at the grenade range, like, y'all, like, we're there physically. But I was like, you guys can go first. I don't care. I'm going to make some coffee. So I just...
Can you hold on a second, man?
Sure.
I smell something burning really close, and there's fire. There's fires up north. So give me a second, okay?
Yeah, of course. Okay, can you see that?
In a second. Yes, now I can.
Okay. So...
Switch to the satellite view.
What's that?
Switch to the satellite view.
I will in a second.
Okay.
I was doing this because I can see the territory lines a little easier.
Gotcha.
So the mountains are all up here, and this is Helmand, this is Nimruz, this is Farah, and like right here at this point, this is Delaram, that's the city, and like we're just south of there. So we're kind of like at the confluence of all of these little different, different territories basically within Afghanistan. So at different times, I had parts of my units like in all three. So like,
Wow.
Trying to remember exactly which province it was half the time. Like, were we technically in this one or that one? I know half the time my people were over there, so I was trying to remember. But switch to the satellite view if you wanted, and then like so this is the town of Delaram, and you can see this is like a convergence of many roads. So it's a key kind of area. Let's see the town. So this was the town of Delaram. There's a Afghan National Police Station there. We worked with them a lot to help secure the road. And then we were in this area down here. So you can actually, this is not it. This is something else.
It is weird to see like your shit on satellite, because I've seen like where I used to live in Iraq on a satellite.
Yeah.
And it's really weird.
Yeah. For this, I'd have to go back. You can go back.
The Wayback Machine.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
And like see it. But it's basically was like right in here. And we would pretty regularly head up and interact with the police, work with them to make sure the road is secure. And somewhere in this desert area here, I trained a bunch of Afghan army dudes to be motorcycle couriers. So that was cool.
That is pretty cool. That's really cool, actually, because, you know, I love riding motorcycles, so.
It was one of those really rare and really unlikely experiences where I guess turn this off. Unless, do you know where the button is to go way back? I don't remember.
No, I don't know. I don't know going here.
They've changed the way the map stuff works, and I don't remember how to do it anymore. Anyways, I'm just going to stop sharing this. So it came up because they needed some of the training on literally just like riding motorcycles. And so they just asked the regiment, like asked everybody, hey, pass the word, does anybody know how to ride motorcycles? I'm like, I've been riding a dirt bike since I was like 10. And they're like, okay, hey, come on out here. Especially having a staff CO involved too. They're like, yeah, staff sergeant, get out here.
Yeah.
And we did a week of us basically going through the full BRC, basic rider course, that is the Motorcycle Safety Foundation and basic rider course ourselves, just to refresh everybody on what we were planning to then teach them. And then we spent the next like 6 weeks cycling someone in a couple of days. Like I obviously couldn't just leave my job, the work that we had to do too, every single day for 6 weeks. So I would take 2 days, teach a couple, because it's only a 1 day course. So teach a day or two, and then be back at work, and then teach a day or two, and go back to work. And for every single course we ran, I feel like we were doing it across 2 days. Like it was always a 2 day group, and then I would go, and then someone else would do a 2 day group, and someone else would do a 2 year, and then I would go back. And we would have a full group of students for each of those 2 days. And at the end of the 2 day session, apparently our colonel was a very big motorcycle fan too, and he would come out for that last ride when we would go like off road all around the whole camp, just on a nice And so I'm sure he was getting a kick out of every 2 days going on a nice ride around. But yeah, like I bring it up most of the time now because that's like a really rare experience and something that can show some of the young Marines like, this is the cool shit that you can do every once in a while.
What kind of bikes did you use?
So there were these British KTMs that were still leaded fuel. They were old.
Oh wow, yeah.
But they were green. They had like the side saddle freaking rifle holster, and then this side was for the pouches to carry all of their messages they were delivering.
Nice.
And then, so like specific to training, like that was a consideration we had to have. So normally when you're doing basic rider course, you like wait in line and you run your little circuit drill and get back in line. So we had to, like, when you get back in the line, you turn your engine off.
Because it's leaded, yeah.
Because we'd just be standing there breathing in leaded gas, like exhaust the whole time. So if you're next in line, when they start, you can start your engine up so that way you're ready to run your drill as soon as they finish. Other than that, you're waddling. You're walking that thing forward. Do not turn your engine.
That's smart though.
So, little considerations you had to think about. Which was funny because I want to say we started going through the course the first day or two. And when they were then describing the bikes, I want to say it was like a corporal or something was talking to the master sergeant who was basically like running it. He's like, "Wait, which bikes did you say these are?" And realized like these are leaded fuel gas, like motorcycles. The fuel we have that was supplied for the training or whatever. Like, yeah, this is all leaded. Like, he's like, we need to turn these off when we stop to ride. Because this dude was like he was doing motocross most of his high school time. Like, and that's what's great about having young people a part of it too. And this is what I'm trying to get my instructors, because a lot of us get into this mindset where this brand new Marine doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
It can't know anything. And it's like, you know that they had a life beforehand, right? And probably at least, especially a group of 20-something students, they did some stuff. They've had a life. And if you can make what you're trying to show them meaningful and connect to the life that they had, like, they're going to be so much more interested in what it is you're trying to tell them.
Yeah, no, that is important, especially because obviously when you find somebody that has like actual experience, you need to like really foster them and help them out. Because don't get me wrong, I've met plenty of young Marines that they were not exceptional in really anything that I knew them for. But I remember there was like this one guy, his name is Aquino, and out of a whole group of these people that we got when I was a corporal, and I was like, this is like the one guy. There was maybe two, but he was the one that was like the most exceptional. I was like, listen, man, I'm gonna get you the fuck out of here. Like, you're in ninth comm. I'm gonna make sure you get on the MEU like as soon as possible, because like you're in a group of people that nobody's gonna like, and they're gonna associate you with them. And let me just, I don't want what the Marine Corps did to me to happen to you. So I'm gonna get you on the MEU as soon as possible, and I did. I got him on the MEU as soon as possible. Nice. He was probably in ninth comm for like maybe 2 months. Then he went on MEU, and I was just like, thank goodness. So yeah, he made something of himself, but I was just like, dude. But other people, they wouldn't even recognize that. They'd just be like, oh, it's just new Marines. They don't know anything, Yeah.
And I think some of that is what ends up being the feedback I get right, at the schools. You send me people who don't know anything. Did you even talk to them?
Yeah.
But anyways, to refocus.
Yeah.
I don't understand anybody who thinks that anything to do with attempting to occupy the territory currently known as Afghanistan was going to go in any different way.
No. It's historically.
So, 100%. So I read this book that I want to recommend for anybody who wants to know anything about Afghanistan, on the flight into Afghanistan. Because it took us like 3 total days worth of travel time on aircraft and everything to get there, including like layovers in Kazakhstan and Germany. A different group, I think, showed up in Germany that had done an extra stop in Ireland also. So there's all these extra stops we have to do. So this book is called Afghanistan. Say it ain't so. It's called Afghanistan, and then the subtitle basically is A Military History from Alexander the Great to the Present. And it's by the author Stephen Tanner. I read this kind of as I was trying to look into something that was a good military history of the area that I was going to, so that I could understand more about what was going on. And it basically made it clear to me. I was like, oh, this is, no matter what we do, these people are very good at retaining their own culture, retaining their own identity, and not letting an occupation force, which is to some extent what it was, change that, right? So if you know anything about history, Alexander the Great, right, conquered everything from Macedonia all the way down into India, fell in love with Persia, right? So basically there was concerns among the Macedonians, which are Greeks, basically, right, that Alexander became too Persian, like he started dressing Persian rather than dressing Macedonian and adopting a lot of their uh, like cultural mannerisms and things. But he made it through Afghanistan and then into India, the northern portion of India, across the Hindu Kush, which is a part of like basically the border between India and Afghanistan originally. And like there started being some fighting back basically in the rear, right, in this area of Afghanistan, which made him pull everything back from India and focus on trying to hold on to, again, not called Afghanistan at the time, but the area currently known as Afghanistan. And the same as many others, like it just took so much of his resources to constantly hold on to it that not only did he lose India in order to try to hold it because his supply line's going back to Macedonia, but then also had to like back out of there and basically just stay in Persia. It's not the first time. It's not going to be the last time, probably. I doubt that Afghanistan changes in our lifetime.
No, and I don't think that it needs to be. There's nothing on Earth that needs to be conquered anymore. Leave people the fuck alone. And yes, I understand that there are some atrocities that are happening, or that were happening in Afghanistan that could happen in Afghanistan again. But at the same time, if you want to like take like a your fine-tooth comb to the world, why don't you have the same care about the women and children in North Korea, or the women and children in Saudi Arabia, or all these other countries that do similar things that you turn a blind eye to? But because the military-industrial complex told you to pay attention to this, and these are bad, we need to have our interest here, that's the only reason why you care about them at all. And I'm being perfectly honest.
Or the women and children in red line districts in industrial areas in the United States.
Yes, or that comes to today, but even more valid to today, because obviously, I'm all about talking about that. But we have children in cages right now in America. I don't see people caring about them at all. When we put them in cages, I didn't see it like that. I saw way more people get mad about us pulling out of Afghanistan on the grounds of women and children than people that are getting mad about women and children that are in cages in America. Mostly children in cages in America that are immigrants. So I just leave. You can miss me with that whole fake outrage nonsense because you don't care. You don't care.
You're doing really well, just so you know.
I'm trying to.
You're keeping it clean, man. Good job.
I'm trying. I don't want to get demonetized or a little bit demonetized because you can get like the limited thing. Yeah. We'll probably get it anyway. But
we aren't to where any of that matters yet, anyways.
Well, I think the content that we're talking about is going to get us at least limited on YouTube.
Oh no, I mean like we don't have subscribers to the point where anything can be monetized on the YouTube channel.
No, but eventually,
sometime. I think both of us are, at least with this particular project, I don't care about that. Right? I'm doing this because I think we have a goal, an objective, a hope that we can show people, like two people who don't even know each other can have a civil discourse on stuff and understand that we're going to have differences, and it hasn't been too many, but there are. Yeah. I think they're subtle differences that there's no reason not to still try to figure out what like, and have a conversation about it so that we can maybe get towards right, regardless of what my position or your position on something was. So, I don't care if we get monetized. It'd be cool if we did.
Yeah,
but I don't really care.
Anyway, yeah. So just like the fake outrage, just stop the nonsense.
Yeah. There was something I was gonna say. Shit. It was about concern over what's going on here. I don't know what it was. So, like if we think about the money, I'm not saying at any point, and I know you're not saying at any point, we shouldn't have a strong enough military to defend ourselves
You know,
and our interests and anything that is, our nation and the people who are a part of it. But that's not where we are right now. We are working beyond the scope of what should be our own vested interest. The farthest into the Pacific that American military bases should be is Guam. That's maybe not a popular opinion. I know there are lots of bases still in Japan, and there are Japanese people who love the idea that our bases are there.
some I
But
don't.
a vast majority do not.
Yeah.
It's political enough of an agenda item for the Japanese that, and you know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Where are the highest concentration of military bases in the country of Japan?
Is it in the south?
Like, exactly where, like which
Well,
island it is.
Okinawa, but yeah.
Yes. So the island of Okinawa has the highest density, like concentration of all U.S. military bases in Japan. There are more bases, the largest square footage technically in Honshu, but it's also spread out really far, right? It's a big island. Whereas Okinawa, it's really densely packed as far as square footage to the amount of base that's used up. So we regularly in Okinawa have protests right outside the base. They will line up along the fence. They never block the gate. They're very respectful. They are doing what, they're showing that there is a problem and they want it addressed. They will hold hands, not blocking up any traffic, all the way around the base. Like just stand there, hold hands, right?
Wow.
Very peaceful protests. Not a one of those people are Japanese. Not Japanese, but Okinawans. They get flown in from mainland Japan to do these protests because this is where it gets attention. The Okinawans usually hate it because more than anybody else, the Okinawans actually mostly like us being there because we've kind of created a symbiotic relationship in Okinawa because of that density and because of the history and because Okinawa is a little weird where it's, mixed culture too, where there's like original Okinawans, the Ryukyu, and then Japanese there. So they have their own history that's different. And I think that's a key example too, where to them though, and to me, like I think Guam is fine because it's a territory and they want to be American more than most Americans do. And it would be fine if we had bases there in order to support Pacific interests. But being in Japan still stretches us really far. It costs us a lot. There's the freedom of navigation discussion regarding China. And I don't know that that's necessarily a valid reason to have to pursue this kind of spending for that extension of our resources or our military, or I don't know how else to say it. You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying, but so I think once we establish the mu, that having these sorts of bases and using that same excuse is almost invalid. So if anybody didn't know, if you're not in the Marine Corps specifically, there's the thing called the mu. It's the Marine Expeditionary Unit. I've been on one. You've probably been on a couple, right? You've been on zero? Okay. Well, you deployed, so it doesn't fucking matter. So the mu is basically, it's like America's guarantee that if something happens anywhere in the world, we can be there within 2 days. And it's these groups of ships that go around the world at any given time, and they rotate out. So if anything happens anywhere in the world, we can be there within 2 days. And if you want to justify having bases around the world because we can be there faster, like the mu is pretty fucking fast. And it has at least 3,000 Marines on it that are attached, plus, submarines and various other, aircraft and all those other things. Like, you have the tip of the spear is always just floating around the world. We can be there. But to another point, though, when you talk about... I think it's really cool that we have a base in Japan, only because Japan is cool. But if they don't want us there...
It's very cool.
Yeah, if they don't want us there, that's another point. But at the same time, like, if we decided to, take our base... This is kind of a shitty argument, I'm thinking about it. But if you decide to take any base out of anywhere, it drastically harms the economy. And me just saying that, I kind of feel like an asshole. Because, is money worth That I don't know, but I've seen it happen in California.
It happens to the Japanese too. So it's this interesting thing. So do you know about lockdowns in Okinawa at all, or anything like that happens when anything happens?
Well, I know about like
You know,
when like military members getting like a DUI or something like that, or kill somebody in some of the locals, and yeah, so it's like then it's like that becomes like a huge issue. So I'm sorry, explain it. I'll let you explain it.
no, that was really close. Like that's basically what I was gonna say. So whenever some kind of thing that might not even hit the news in the United States would happen with a military member, if it's an American and a Japanese in Okinawa, especially since it's so densely populated, it'd happen anywhere in Japan too. It's now an international incident, right? It's two countries having to deal with this issue, and a lot of times the response that the U.S. military does in order to show solidarity, say like, look, this is not how we want to react, is they make us all stay on base.
Yeah.
Right. So we would be on bases. I could go to my house because my house was out in town, but I could only go from my house to work. Or we could shop on base, but we can't go to shops out in town. We can't go to restaurants. Bars are locked down. No one can go to any of these places. It usually only lasts a week before the bars start going like, "Hey,
Where's the money? Yeah.
can you let them come back out here, please? Because we'd really like to get back up and running." We accept that this happens. We're all aware. Let's get it going. You know, the protests stopped from mainland Japan, and the Okinawans businesses that are being affected are like, "Can you bring them back out?"
Yeah.
So it isn't it that there is this economic issue that would happen, but I think if it's done correctly, better than put everybody on a plane and take off.
Yeah.
That it can be done in a way that doesn't hurt that bad. Like it would have to be slow. It would have to be like a backing off, because then the economy could learn, like it could shift and adjust. Some of those bars would need to become other things.
Yeah, but I also want to make sure, because I was just thinking about it in the back of my head. I'm like, I want to differentiate the fact that Japan is our ally, so is Germany, and Afghanistan isn't really an ally for us, especially right now. Even like throughout the whole war, they're not really an ally of ours. They might say that we are, but because we have not put in the same amount of time, care, and respect to Afghanistan and resources in Afghanistan than we did with Japan and Germany. And I bring up those two countries because they are people that we had a large part in destroying, and we helped them rebuild their countries. And we did it in a far better manner than we did with Afghanistan. When Afghanistan went in there, we had a mission, we defeated the bad guys, and then we stayed there and weren't really involved in the same amount of care that we did to like rebuild the infrastructure with Japan and Germany. Like it just didn't happen. Like yeah, we said that we helped rebuild their military, but as far as I know, like it didn't really go very far.
Yeah, I mean, so we did some civil projects. I know that in some of the major cities, so Kandahar and like Bagram, where Kabul, so the Bagram Air Base in the city of Kabul, we did a lot more construction projects. Army Corps of Engineers was heavy duty in both those areas. We did a few projects with the city of Delaram, but not anywhere near as many as I would kind of assume we would have. And I will say that, so as far as the like official central government of Afghanistan that was established in the time frame while we were there, that we were not allies. Allies is not the right word, but definitely were like partners. Like it's not neutral, but we definitely had like relationship of some kind. I can't honestly like come up with a good word to define it. It's not allies, because allies implies a whole bunch of other stuff where as soon as someone is attacked, you're kind of off at that level. But that central government was definitely on the same page as us. But the big problem that Afghanistan faces is it's actually a very large area, most of which is very rural. Like no one even gives a shit who the president is. It's not about like, that's not my president. They're like, I don't give a fuck who the president is. That's how they are. Like, they are worried about their local leadership and their local community, and maybe the next one over. Other than that, they don't have to worry about it. It's a very. Have you ever thought in your life like it'd be really cool to go live on a mountain and be away from all the bullshit and just like fish and hunt, and just kind of enjoy life, being laid back and relaxed?
Actually, sort of, yes. Like, I wish I could, like, go minimalist, but it'd be hard for me to do. Yeah.
But every once in a while, your mind goes there, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's 100% how they live. Like, they just, most of the people in that country are very happy with their life, are very able to be content, which is a great word. Most people think of content as, like, a bad word. Like, you're putting up with something, like, it's just good enough. Being content means like really not having much concern about stuff. It's like, what time is tea? You know,
Yeah.
when is the next time we're gonna meet with the city council together and like have tea and discuss issues with Joe's farm? You know,
Well, and I think that's like one of the main problems that, you know, when America came over there and mission creep came in, and we decided to, you know, bring democracy. Because let me just give a brief history lesson for people that don't understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, Papa Bear. I haven't, you know, thought about a lot of this, except for like the past couple days since I've been in the Marine Corps. But if memory serves me, we went to war with Al Qaeda, right? That's why I went to Afghanistan, because that's where they were at the time, right?
well, and so again, talking specifics to like the word war, right? Like, did we declare war on anyone?
Well, it was a war on. That's the thing. Is the war on terror, and that's like you're terrorizing people at home. You know what I mean? Like, people are getting terrorized in America, so it's a war on terror. Like, there should be entire police departments that are, you know, totally destroyed by the war on terror, and that's a whole different conversation. But literally, that's what should happen right now. Like, every time you see somebody getting fucked up by the police in America, and the police department decides to cover it all up, where's the war on them? They're terrorizing their community. So
I appreciate the assist there. Thanks.
yeah.
It's just it's a simple thing, right? You can only declare war and have it be justified between two actual, like, states is technically the term, but people need to understand, like, state does not mean a state within the United States.
Yeah.
It's a formal government body, and to the United States, that means the federal government, even though the state is really its own also, right? That's a whole other topic. So to do it on drugs or on crime or on terror, or what's another one we talked about the other day?
We do
Fear.
Fear.
It's like all these. You can't do that. So it's cool words. Good job. But it's not real, right? So any of those. So, like, specific example, it generally is kind of a part of the rules for it that whoever you're declaring war on can officially fight back.
Yeah, this is very important. Yeah.
So if you declare war on drugs, is the cocaine going to fight back?
No.
No. If you declare war on terror, is like this emotion that you're feeling, is it gonna? If you say terrorism, like they should have been the original, like the actual wording used. Again, that particular individual wasn't real good with words. Then it's an idea, but again, is that idea, and is that a single entity that can officially be able to fight back on its own? No. Now, if you said, like you said, which is why I was like, I wanted to be clear. If we had officially declared a war on Al Qaeda, that being a specific organization that is persecuting a terrorism campaign against us, Now I'm a little more on board with the wording and the official declaration and how we did it. But we didn't do that.
Yeah, and it was very specific to that particular to say you're gonna have the war on terror or even terrorism, and then you focus it solely on Afghanistan, on just one country. It's like you already failed your first mission because there's terrorism all over the planet, and you're just gonna ignore all the terrorism that's done in Africa and other Middle Eastern nations, here in America. There's places in Europe that still have issues as well. But you're gonna ignore all that and just focus on one particular country. And it should have just been, if we're gonna go to war with it didn't make any sense to me. Like that, looking back when we started the war with Afghanistan. Yes, I understand 9/11. I was alive during it. I was in when it first happened. It was crazy because I was still in the Marine Corps. A lot of emotions go back to that. But like looking back at it, like Monday morning quarterback and that shit, it's like, why did we go there for that long? Like for real. 21 years to do anything is a very long time. A very long time. I mean, you name anything that takes more than 20 years, like besides going to school. And we're talking about killing people for 21 years. These are dire consequences for 21 years. And I think that when I hear the vast majority of, not vast majority, when I hear a certain type of civilian talk about the war in Afghanistan, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't understand the human casualties. They don't understand what the locals are going through in that country. I've literally had a job when I was in Qatar, and when I was doing my job, in front of me was a giant screen full of I think it was 8 or 16 other screens, and it was just UAV feeds all day, every day. So I watched people getting blown the fuck up all day, every day. And it's just like, what? Are we sure we have all the right intel on every single person I'm watching die in front of me on this screen? Like, for real. And we know we didn't, because we already know there's plenty of stories about it. Because, when, let me just rewind for a second. Before people think that, it's a left or a right thing, it's not a Democrat or Republican thing, okay? Because we've had 2 Republican presidents and 2 Democrat presidents that have ran the same goddamn war, and they've all done a terrible job. All of them have done a terrible job. When President Obama became the president, he started to do more and more UAV bombings. And that's less and less of verified intel of when we decided to just drop a bomb and kill somebody. And that's what I had to watch.
Yeah, there was definitely an increase in that during his tenure. And anytime it goes to party versus party stuff, I have to bring back, you realize that the party positions from both sides have flipped on huge subjects.
Yeah, like slavery.
Depending on the generation. Yeah. Maybe, that might be a big subject. Worth discussing whether or not someone flipped or didn't flip on it in a particular party. And this particular topic has zero to do with party, because it's more about which at a specific time is the war hawks. And it's definitely changed from party to party throughout the centuries as the United States, because there's always been a group that were the war hawks. And I think right now the reality is that, like you said, it's in both parties, because the Warhawks are the industrial complex side of the military-industrial complex, which then drives all of the money associated to governments and elections and campaigns and things, so that there's then an incentive to support those kinds of agendas. And I'm not saying that someone's going to declare war just because there's money involved, but you will ensure that military systems continue to be built so that those companies continue to get money. You will make sure that the next platform within a specific platform stovepipe is approved. Not that helps in integrated systems concepts, because we Did you read The Kill Chain?
Yes, I did. Great book.
Yeah, so I mean, again, continuing to not necessarily make it better, but keep spending money for sure. Those are the parts that bother me too. They go along with it, because I think that's a big thing, is that it's connected in the way that those people making those decisions are able to continue to push for more spending, whether there's specifically a declared war or not. I do want to point out there's a 2005 Harvard law study that discusses the war on terrorism, and there's a section in it. It's pretty much one of the first things you'll find if you look for like officially declare war on terrorism. If you use a Google search that, you'll probably find this Harvard law study. So I'm going to read a small section, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So it says, the second misconception, and it's talking about a couple things about the ability to even do what was done, is that the powers granted to the president are limited or truncated in some fashion because an armed conflict with terrorists is not a, in quotes, real war, right?
Yeah.
So what it's saying is two things to me. Whenever you put something together like that, it does talk about the fact that, nope, it's okay. Presidents can actually prosecute full military operations for pretty long extended periods of time without an official declaration of war. You can just do it. There are ways for Congress to authorize military operations to be led by the president without a specific declaration of war. So they don't have to declare it, but they do need to authorize the president to continue to do so. He has limited powers without those authorizations, but as long as Congress says, yeah, go ahead, it doesn't need to be called a war. But what that sentence does tell me is that they're saying it is pretty clearly identified as not a real war.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it, like, I think famously when President Obama, I don't mean to pick on him, but I'm just thinking of, like, in my recent memory of, like, when President Obama wanted to go to war with Libya, right? And then it pretty much got shot down. Like, he came on TV talking about how we're going to go to Libya, and then he got shot down, like, later. And it was kind of, like, quietly kind of went away. But it was just like, it's definitely, I think that there should be no one person that should be able to declare war on anything. And yeah, saying that you can get the Congress authorization, but if the party that you're a part of controls Congress, you know, like.
Well, I mean, okay, so if we take into account the fact that I think more people need to be in the House, but then so that they're more like the regular people. If you have control of both and you have the presidency, that is the voice of the people. That's the best we can do, unless we want to have, take the time to pass a national election on declaring war.
Well, no, I think that if in that scenario, I don't think that still would not touch the problem that I'm concerned about. If we just expanded, the House of Representatives, but we still had a two-party system, and they're still beholden to these two parties, and they're just trying to grab more power, and they're still getting lobbyist money, then we're still hitting the same issue. You can make it, 50,000 people. It doesn't matter. We still have the same issue. If they're just like, we're just going to vote along the party lines. So
do you think more like a parliamentary system would be better, especially when it comes to declarations of war, where you end up with a hodgepodge of different parties, but then you kind of end up with having to build a majority side so on specific subjects. That works. Did we talk about it already?
Yeah, well, I vaguely understand like how the parliamentary system works, at least in the UK, because somebody explained it to me when I was kind of drunk on a plane. But
good time. It's like I gotta understand. Like, hold on, that says something about us, just so you know, right? We're having these conversations while drinking, and you had that conversation on an airplane while drunk. So these are the kinds of people we are. We have political discussions while drinking.
Also, I drink a lot, so there's that. But I think that another part of it that needs to be addressed is getting corporate money away.
Could just be that.
Yeah, get corporate money out of the hands of people that are that are in the House. Anybody that's in some sort of power, that's what do you call it? Somebody that was voted upon to be in power. They should not be able to take these sorts of. It's bribery. I don't care if they call it lobbying. It's literally bribery. Mm-hmm. And they're just using not even a fancy word. It's an easier word. Bribery is way more fancy than lobbying. They don't even sound the same, but they're literally exactly the same thing. And people just they don't get it.
How do you stop it though?
Make it. You have to make it illegal. Like, listen, if you take money from a corporation on the side, then you're no longer allowed to hold this position. We're going to pay you
Immediately
X amount
remove
of.
from office.
Yeah, you have to leave office. That's just the way it has to be. I don't see any other solution. I understand that it's kind of extreme, but to me, it's not that extreme because you know what's extreme right now is the current system that we have.
Yeah, I don't think it's extreme. My concern is just I don't know that it's enforceable. I 100% stand behind the belief that I can't say that something should be a rule if I don't have a method for actually enforcing it. I'm going to give you a silly example just to tell you the time I got really upset because it's a fun story to tell. So I was at 2nd Marine Air Wing. I was at the Comp Squadron on Checkpoint, right? And I vaguely remember the catalyst incident, but I'm going to paraphrase it. So someone got into like a car accident in the hours of darkness at night, and the Marine was injured badly to the point they weren't going to be able to continue to serve, and also some of their family members died in the car accident.
Yes.
Right? So the CG signs an order.
Commanding General, for everybody that doesn't know. Commanding General.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the Commanding General signs an order saying that unless you are driving directly from home to work or from work to home, you're not allowed to drive during hours of darkness.
Yeah.
Right. You're making that face. And I'm like, so if I'm at work until like 6:30 or 7:30 p.m. because I'm being a Marine, I'm being a badass, and I'm just getting my shit done. I'm making sure to take care of my Marines. We're doing whatever we got to do to be ready to fight, right? I get home finally, and wife's like, I didn't want to cook today. Let's go out and have steak. I can't drive. My wife has night blindness. Like, she can't drive at night. So now I'm by order not supposed to put my family in a car, being the one who can drive at night, drive 2 miles it's not even 2 miles, drive over to the steakhouse or whatever and have dinner together. I can't do that. Why? And how do you actually go out and enforce that? You don't. Here's what happens. You tack that on as a punishment for something else that happened. That's what those kinds of rules are made for, and it irks the shit out of me. Just if it's not something you can enforce, then just don't do it. So that was my one concern when you brought it up. I was like, but I do see how once you could prove it, if either of us were like, that dude's taking some bribes, I'm pretty sure, and then we could issue charges, and then you have an investigation, and then you prove it, you're out. So then it's kind of there's an enforcement mechanism.
I think there is, and
I can see it working.
It comes through basically tax returns, and actually putting out, having better mechanisms to for corporations, like where did your money go, and for a person, where did the money come from, and it's easily trackable through taxes. So that for me, that'd be the enforcement method.
See, and I can't use that as an argument because I don't want there to be an income tax.
Yeah, I get that, but if we'll put it like this: if you don't want there to be an income tax, I mean, that's fine, but you still have to report how much money you made, right? And if you don't want that to happen at all, then I'm fine with that too. We'll make it a special consideration just for government work, just for people that are in offices of power for the government.
Yeah,
and you have to report all of your income. I don't care.
I like that. That works. Yeah. Elected officials, you have to report it. Everybody else, whatever. But you could. So individuals, especially today, are purchasing everything with a card that has their name on it.
Yeah.
So you could also track sales, and like if suddenly you're able to buy 2 new yachts and this other house up in the Hamptons and this other house over there, and you're like, but where'd you get all that money from?
Yeah.
You're a House of Representatives, like representative, and you were a school teacher before.
Yeah, and I think that if you're going to be a public servant, then some of your life has to be a bit more public, and some of that should be your financial means.
Yeah,
that needs to be more public.
But to tie it back in, right? It's these people who are making these decisions to send us to war, and if they're not on the level with us, and it's I'm gonna put names out there. It's it's Raytheon. It's the
DRS, ITT. I can name it, but I work for some of them.
And I was immediately going more towards like military equipment system platforms, big
Oh,
like
yeah.
aircraft, and like if you're one of those manufacturers, um, you have a vested interest in making sure that they continue to pass these things in your favor. It makes sense to invest money in making sure that that happens. Um, I think the future of that, if that happened, would be that they would have to diversify their portfolio and do things other than building tanks and building combat aircraft, which some of the companies already do that. They are doing the right thing. They're building things for the military and have a commercial interest as well. And I think that's probably what should have been happening. And I think that's what really that Eisenhower was talking about is like, I'm seeing now a creation of commercial side, industrial side companies that do nothing but produce things for the military. And instead of being a company which can produce a thing for the military, they're a company that produces a thing for the military. And that's where he was seeing the concern, I guess.
And what's even worse is that it's really unfettered. So there's things called no bid contracts, where basically they get a contract and no matter what, they get the money or more. And when the contract is up, nobody can bid against them. When the contract, it just gets automatically renewed for more money, and it's incredibly wasteful. Like if you look at, I think it was the F-35 with the Lightning II, like end up being like way over by billions of dollars over budget, and it's an aircraft that is supposedly stealth, but if it gets rained on or wet, you have to repaint it, and it costs millions of dollars to repaint it. Who in their right fucking mind would authorize that? And the military has literally zero recourse to be like, no, like you need to like fix that. And the company that I forget who makes it, I think it's Lockheed Martin, but they're not culpable for any of that. They just be like, if he wants to change this, we're just going to charge you more. And it's like, no, this is not what any reasonable person would ask for. Could you imagine buying a brand new car and it got wet and then you had to repaint it? Like what? We'll just drive it on dry days. Oh, also it costs you $20,000 to repaint the car.
Like a third of what the aircraft or the car itself costs you.
Yeah, and it's no warranty. Not for the paint.
The thing we know is going to be messed up as soon as that happens, and which means you have to pay for it every once in a while.
Yeah, it's really infuriating to me, and especially when it comes to the manpower. Because yes, the actual contracts for like weapon systems and stuff like that is semi-justifiable, sort of. But when it comes to like actual like man and woman power, however you want to put it, gender neutral people power, whatever. There's no excuse there. Like, if you have somebody, you already have people in the military that fill multiple different roles in the military. What the war in Afghanistan and Iraq showed me is that these corporations have destroyed the military. They've destroyed the military because they've somehow convinced these generals and these military leaders, these politicians, that you need to hire a contractor to scrub a toilet or to configure a router or to build a city street or to put up a tent or I'm just no, that's all these things military members can do at a fraction of the cost. That's what you pay them for.
And I mean, my frustration right now is that in order for those service members to do that thing, we would need to train them to do the thing. But that takes time, and that takes a different pot of money to train them to do these tasks, even the simple ones, like setting up tents without breaking them. It made you laugh a little, because it happens.
Yeah, it does happen.
But then those don't seem like tasks to people that I should be spending time teaching people how to do.
Well, not you specifically, no. And this is where, like, when I talk about like contractors, like, listen, yes, there are definitely appropriate situations for contractors, like actually teaching military members how to do specific things for the product that they're selling. Totally get that, but you don't need to have. I'll just give me as an example, and you can apply this to a lot of contractors. Okay, I do storage area networks. I could have learned this as a Marine. Okay, I went overseas and I got paid. The first time I went overseas was like $250,000, and they paid anywhere between 1.4 and 1.6 million dollars just for me, a single person. You could have shown me how to do that when I was a lance corporal for like less than $30,000 a year, and I would have done the same job happily
Yeah, and then you would have had to pay one contractor to
to teach
teach
me. Yeah,
30 something Marines in a setting as he traveled around
yeah,
that for 1 year, and then now you have Marines who can do it for a couple of years.
and that's
So
all
I
I'm
actually
routers.
have, yeah, I think we've done some of that, but it's not as prevalent as it should be. So I have guys getting trained next week through a contract from L3 Harris to teach us to operate systems, but part of that is because it's a program record and it's done through through a part of that program, and I think that's why those systems exist, and that's why some of that so frustrating bureaucracy to develop new systems is to ensure that it's done this way instead of the way we were just making shit happen for the last 20 years during war, where we were cutting a lot of corners to just throw guys like you out there instead of doing the smart thing and making that a program and saying teach these guys how to do it.
Yeah, I'd have had no problem like literally teaching the guys how to do. Even to this day, if they opened up like a program for me to teach Marines how to do what I do right now, I would do it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you have to pay me like what I'm getting paid now, but
Yeah,
I to me that'd be way more. First of all, it'd be way more fulfilling to me in my life to do that. You know what I mean? And it would save America a whole bunch of money. Like make a bunch of smart Marines. But this comes in another problem that we talked about on the podcast. I think at least once is that if I teach a Marine these skills, then you have to pay that Marine more money. Like I'm sorry. Like you can't tell me that a mechanic should get paid the same amount of money as somebody that can program a router or do a storage area network or deal with nuclear whatever. It's just like
right.
they should not be the same pay scale.
Yeah, and what I thought of the other day as like the best solution to the problem, because there's a balancing act that needs to happen where your basically trained entry level mechanic also shouldn't get paid the same as the ASE certified, been doing this for 4 years, made extra military qualifications mechanic.
Yeah.
Even if they're the same rank.
Yes.
So like
I'm glad you
there
brought that
should
up.
be
Yeah.
certification levels internal to fields that could allow them to get there. So say even comparing fields, what I would think would be this is the smartest way to do it is there's the baseline pay scales we currently have, right? So you have this year in E3. You get paid E3 pay. But then this mechanic who's an E3 in this field like goes out of his way or already was ASE certified and decided to become a mechanic, right? He immediately gets some certification pay based on that. Now you have a networking Marine who's completed entry-level school but has 0 certifications. You're still just getting paid E3 pay, man. Sorry. And then get your CCNA certification. Okay, now you get paid a certification pay that can help you scale up. So, and maybe CCNA certification is more than ASE, but I don't think it necessarily should be. That shows you being an interested and dedicated professional to be like the best at your jobs. And I got plenty of trucks that don't work. I'd really love mechanics who could actually make these damn trucks work.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Like right when I said that, I was like, but there's obviously way more skilled mechanics, and then you brought that up. So thank you. This is where like we synergize a little bit. Yeah. So I'm like, there's probably some mechanics like, fuck you. But yeah, there's people that have different skill levels than other people, and in the current military system, there's really no incentives to like do so. Especially in like the Marine Corps, like there's no incentive for a Marine that has a high level skill competency to go up the chain. Like if you want to get meritorious, it has nothing to do with your skills in your actual job unless you happen to be like a grunt. Then it's more on that level. But if you have like skills outside of being like, doing like Marine Corps shit, there's no incentive for you to like really stay in. That's one of the reasons why I got out. Because I'm like, I have all these skills and I'm not getting paid shit. I got a family and I got a jerk above me as a gunny. Like, why am I going to stay? I'm sorry, he's a master sergeant, but why am I going to stay in and like just get shit on all day? Like, no.
Yeah, and I mean, I've also been for this concept where we should be able to allow Marines to continue to scale up, like do step up type stuff for their pay scales based on certifications and time, but not need to get promoted to corporal. If all they really want to do is be the most badass fucking truck mechanic you've ever seen, like you bring that truck in, that dude will have that shit working in an hour or two. Like he's gonna figure it out. He's just that good, you know. Because that's some people's passion, and what we do is we force them to give that away
And lead.
because then and become move into a leadership role. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
you just need to manage a schedule and like train your Marines to do the things. It's like, but my passion is working on trucks, not managing people who work on trucks. And there are mechanics out there who are getting paid lots of money because they are just really good. They're not managing a shop. Most of them eventually kind of do, and then they also still work on the trucks themselves.
Yeah.
And we take that away from them. By the time they're staff sergeants, would be my guess, right? They're 100% off trucks. Like they could not still work on a truck, and that's still not even huge amounts of pay. Like I wouldn't want to still support my family on a staff sergeant pay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know me, I can't do that, but it's like, yeah, I don't get why, the people are forced, and especially when I've seen so many bad leaders in the Marine Corps. I think that's part of the problem, because if you do like the vanilla way up, like there's nothing that you don't really have an incentive on to be a real good leader. And yes, there's corporals courses and sergeants courses and all this blah 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 blah, but you can still be a really bad leader. And I've seen it happen a lot when I was in, where they didn't know how to just like even talk to like different types of. They just thought that Marine was Marine. They didn't care about the individual, and that's an issue. Like, yeah, we're basic riflemen, but you're gonna tell me that a guy that just had his second kid or had twins on the same day, that's a Lance Corporal, has the same needs and wants as a single Marine that's a Lance Corporal that's living in the barracks. No, they're not. They're not having the same needs on any level.
And they have different drives and motivations too, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be a good enough leader to identify those and play to them. And like I see it in sergeants and corporals all the time too, where they'll not understand that people they're talking to aren't Marines, and right, this happens to them all the time. And it was literally today. There was a guy today or yesterday. He was talking to someone from help desk because something's wrong with his ID card, so that he can't use his email, and like something's wrong with it. And he's not communicating well with the person on the phone because he's getting pissed off because the guy doesn't understand what's going on and doesn't understand his problem. But then he's making it worse because he's still just getting pissed off and yelling at him like he's a PFC or something, and he just needs to fix his computer system. It's like, you're not helping make this easier to help the civilian, GS4 or whatever on the other side of the phone, like, understand your problem. If all he hears is you cursing him out, he will take his time. He will take his time.
Yep, and there's nothing that you can really do about that. So you can't command him or her, whatever.
Yeah, I've always said that those situations where it's hard to train a Marine NCO to understand you catch more flies with honey than you do with shitting on them. So it's like, dude, be nice. Understand this person is a person and has their own drives and motivations and needs, and just, you don't have to be sweet to them, but you should be professional, be human, right? I don't know.
All right.
It doesn't seem that hard to me.
Let's get back to Afghanistan for a little bit, because we're kind of.
We do need to wrap it up.
Yeah. So anyway, the things about Afghanistan that are crazy to me, we need to leave. All right, we had to. Mm-hmm. There's nobody on this planet that can explain to me possibly why we still need to be there, what our mission currently was. Like, nobody can explain to me what that was. There's literally no excuses. Don't bring up Gold Star families. Yes, I understand service members died, but unfortunately, I don't know how to tell this to you, but people die in war. And if you just keep going to war for revenge, war would never fucking end. Okay? So, and if you use their same revenge strategy, then apply the same thing to the people that we just killed. So should they have the right to come back and start killing Americans too? Grow up. Eventually, you have to stop. Understand that people die in wars. Yes, it sucks, but it cannot last forever. And we have a moral obligation to assist the translators and the translators' families to remove them from Afghanistan if they wish to do so and give them a safe haven in America. And yes, if we need to use taxpayer dollars, that needs to be done. I have no problem with that whatsoever. They put their lives on the line way more than any civilian has done in America for their country. They helped out the people that died for this country. Some of their people have died. Some of their family members have died for this country. And people say, well, they're Islamic terrorists, or they're not the best of the best. I don't care. They helped us out. For us not to help them, is the most disrespectful, moral bankrupt thing I've ever heard anybody try to justify.
And to say they're not the best of the best, if you're talking about people who were our translators, those are some of the best people that are over there. Like, people discount language skills and personal interaction skills, and I've made jokes about it, like, because it is complicated to try to then communicate your needs to a translator for them to then get on a radio and transmit that across the radio to another person who then translates it back to like another person over there. There's inherently going to be
a lot of issues.
Problems with that, no matter how good that translator is or how much they care about making sure that what they convey is exactly what you said. But they were always 100% invested in, what our goal was. Because on the small level, compared to, what we talk about, the strategic military industrial complex level, where those people have objectives, the individual Marine and the squad and the platoon, even our regiment, like, we had goals that were good, right? We're trying to put a well in this town. We're going to make sure that the police have the training and the understanding to support their community and protect them, and patrol the roads for IEDs, and do these things that needed to be done. Patrolling for IEDs was only needed because we were there. Whole other thing. Yeah. So understanding that those people, to say that they're not the best of the best, I don't know what we're looking for if that's the case, because their heart is interested in humanity and helping and making things better, and they know that as soon as someone finds out that they were any part of what we were doing, they're going to be killed. So they're just trying to get out of there and go to the country that they were helping, and I don't see why that should be too much to ask.
Yeah, no, it's bare minimum. I mean, really, just help them the way that they helped us. And if it needs to, honestly, there needs to be medals for them. There needs to be national attention brought up for them in a positive light. And one last point before we end the podcast, just one last thing I just want to make sure that people understand, is that this whole debacle of when we pulled out, the whole country falling that fast, don't put all the blame on Joe Biden, okay? Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's the best president. He's definitely not the worst president. He's definitely way better than the last president. I think he's doing a decent job. But there's three... Go ahead.
He's no LBJ, but I mean...
Yeah.
He's doing okay.
There's two or maybe three things I don't want to bring up. First of all, it was the last president that actually said that we're going to leave Afghanistan. So he agreed with it, so it's fine. But I agree with it too.
So I did want to say, so when I left in 11, we already knew we were leaving in 14. We were going to be gone by the end of 14. So he's not the only one who said we're leaving.
Yeah, but he actually did a peace deal, which was a shitty one, but we'll talk about that maybe a different day. But
yeah, everybody after the first 2 years said we were leaving next year.
Yeah.
Just
another major thing that I really want to be clear is that the Afghanistan government and military failed Afghanistan. Okay? You're going to tell me that after we trained their military for years and probably the government for years, that in less than 3 days, the entire country collapsed without any significant pushback? None. There's literally none. I didn't see any skirmishes from the Afghanistan military. The president of Afghanistan fled on like the first day. He just bounced, just hopped on an airplane and bounced. So the cowardice that they did needs to be brought up. And yeah, I understand that it's scary to fight people, but that's what you were trained to do. It's like if somebody were to invade America, that all of the armed forces just like stood down, like, no, you're good. Do whatever you want with the civilians. That's what they did in Afghanistan. That's what the military did.
And you have to think too: was it cowardice, or did they know their own people better than we assume to know them, and say like, there's no way you do anything other than what the people in the mountains and the majority of our country want to do. So there was a group that became the Taliban eventually, the Mujahideen that we armed in the 80s. Yeah. And it's still the same groups of people, the same families. It would be like if we knew that all of the most powerful, I was going to list some names, but I can't really think of any right now. The most powerful families in the United States, very specifically, we're going to say, no, we are going to do things a very specific way, and you're really not going to be able to do anything about it because we hold all the cards. Would it make any sense to try to fight against it, or would you be like, well, let's figure out how to work within this new system? That's, you almost think like they didn't not fight back because they were afraid. They didn't fight back because they're like, there's really no point in doing this. It would be easier to, not easier, but it makes more sense for everyone inside our country to work within that system.
That's a good point, but it brings up like kind of another sort of more ethereal point. Is when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, as far as I understand, there wasn't actually that much bloodshed. So when I hear the media talk about, Taliban's taking Afghanistan back, like it's like super negative, I'm like, is it really? Like I don't. This is the problem with like the Western view and the American view on things. Like we think we know the best of like for everything, but if this is what is going to make their country run better, then do we really have a right to tell them no? I mean, I don't understand. Like what this is like this whole like I know better than you do. And, like it's like a very parent to like child thing. But it's if they can run their country with less bloodshed than we did, then I don't see a super down. Like there's gonna be some downsides, but there was a lot of harm that was done when we were there. A lot of harm.
So, like, I guess an analogy would be to try to step outside of our own space for a second and think, to them, it could be really, really weird that we, like, just push a button and, like, select someone to lead our country.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna cast a vote and, like, with no real understanding of who this person actually is or what their skills are, what their capabilities are, some words they said, we pick that person. So for them, this could be the equivalent of an election, right? Hey, those people seem to be serious about this. Let's let them lead shit for a while. I know a bit about Central Asian culture, not enough about where their headspace is right now. So I can't speak on this part of it too. But I will mention, as kind of, I guess, parting shot as we go, there's a really popular sport throughout all of Central Asia. It's kind of similar to soccer, except it's played on horseback. So you play on horseback, and there are two barrel-like things that you place the ball into at the end to score points, right?
Like polo?
It's like polo, but you play it like holding almost like a basketball-sized ball, and it's heavy. It's like an 8-pound ball. So do you know what a round object is that weighs 8 pounds?
A human brain?
A human head. So this is a sport that dates back to playing this with your vanquished enemy's head. And they would play this sport, competing teams just for fun, right? So understand that, again, that's historical. They play with a ball now. Usually it's just like a hard wooden core wrapped with leathers and stuff. It's still pretty heavy. But we don't understand that. Like, I've never played that game. And so just from that one simple example, like their life and their culture and their history is completely different than ours. And to assume you understand what the hell is going on there right now is asinine.
Yeah, I agree. Even with my statements, I agree.
So, and that's the level of understanding we need to come to. Is that we don't understand. We can't assume. What we do know is our people needed to get out of there, and that if anybody there wanted help to get away from it because they don't like where it's going, we should help them with that.
Yes, 100% agree.
That's the two things I would say on it. If we felt like huge human atrocities started happening, we should petition the UN to do something.
Yep, and strengthen the UN, make them actually effective.
Yeah, it shouldn't be unilateral.
Yeah. All right, I think that was good. I didn't drop too many F-bombs. So.
I think I cussed more than you did.
Maybe, probably not. Somebody will probably calculate.
Put the counts in there for us in the comments.
All right, Papa Bear, thank you very much for the conversation, man.
Yeah, thanks. We still don't have a good sign off, but I think we're just gonna, close out normally and say bye.
Yep, later. Okay, there we go. Unless it was something you wanted to talk about on the recording, but yeah.
No. I think there's nothing that's off for the pre-show. So.
Okay, cool. So we can always edit.
And then or chop it to the pre-show and say, hey, if you want to see the really weird background shit. Totally off topic.